Okay, okay. So I'm live here now on YouTube and Facebook, um, and I'm going to be talking about some of the social and political, um, events that we've been seeing, and of course, using the astrology, showing the latest, transits, and looking at a chart. I'm going to be looking at Trump's chart. Going to be, honest. So those who don't want honesty or facts, you might want to go somewhere else. Just warning you, if you're in that, see no evil, hear no evil, the dear leader is all perfect, you're probably not going to like this, because I'm going to be honest and real and just discuss what we see happening and why. It's not just political and not just US politics, but the same things that we're seeing all over the world now. I predicted these things a few months ago as we started to see the rumblings of them continue, now out as Jupiter has firmly and, pretty, has become firmly established in Sagittarius, as we can see in the chart here. We can see here in the chart, we have Jupiter is now pretty firmly established in Sagittarius, and we have actually Mercury's just gone into Scorpio, Mars is here in Libra, but we also have this Saturn, Ketu, Venus. There's a lot of planets there right now in Sagittarius, and this shift and this transition that happened, especially with the political world, happened right when Jupiter was in between Scorpio and Sagittarius. That's when they opened formal inquiry and hearings. Then they've gone through it very quickly in the last couple of weeks to a month. And just today, Pelosi came out and said that, they're going to expedite and vote on the articles of impeachment very soon. Now, if I were to bring up the chart of Trump, we can see, as I mentioned a while ago, this is the transit chart. We can see right now the exact degrees from the chart, the transiting chart, Saturn at 24 degrees, 22 minutes, just going over his Jupiter right now at exactly 24 degrees. So at exactly 24 degrees, we're seeing things hit right now. Not only that, Jupiter is aspecting 6 degrees and 36 seconds, and his ascendant 6 degrees, 53 seconds. So this is the exact culmination of these transits happening right now after all of this. I spoke about this as well about a month and a half ago and said that Trump was going to get some grace and what we would call maybe good news, at least for him, with Jupiter, especially bringing this aspect to his ascendant, and then also to Mars. I said that would be kind of a time when he would have some, you would say, good luck, by exact degree, at least with Jupiter aspecting the ascendant, but during, and also Mars, but during that entire time, Saturn was also crunching down on his natal Jupiter as well. So we've seen both of these transits in full force for the last month or so, like I talked about at the time. And I said at the time that they would be better to slow it down. The longer it drags out, the better it'll be for justice to be served. Of course, we're seeing that, and it looked like they were just going to race through it, and that racing through it really quickly, again, they raced through it and got it finished at the time when Trump was actually getting the most sort of benefit, at least. If they do still kind of slow it down, instead of having like 2 people a day and overwhelm and the kind of thing like those hearings were. Even in spite of that, it was very compelling to see these career diplomats and, pretty much politically neutral people say, oh, this is what happened. Everybody was in on it. He was definitely, saying you're not getting the money until you make an announcement on CNN that we're investigating Biden or whatever it was. All of that was going on. Trump was actually getting a benefit of the Jupiter aspect to his Mars and his ascendant, but Saturn was also aspecting Jupiter in Trump's second house. So that was all happening at that time. And I said, as it slows down more, it's going to get harder. His karmas get worse in that now Jupiter is going to keep going past the exact degrees. And you can see what happens as Jupiter is now moving past the exact degree and Saturn is of his ascendant. Because again, Jupiter in the sky is 6 degrees and 36 seconds. And Trump's ascendant is 6 degrees. Let me put the exact degrees here. Trump's exact ascendant degree is 653 of Leo. Jupiter is now 636. So even if I go forward tomorrow, one day, it's almost past. In 2 days, it passes his ascendant. And it's not going to come back to those degrees. It's going to go forward all the way into Capricorn, then go back, and then it's going to be in later degrees. So he's not going to get this exact aspect again on Mars and Jupiter. And Saturn is also not going to hit these aspects again. So you're seeing this exact moment right now when they've gone through those hearings and they've, they had the people before the Judiciary Committee yesterday, I think it was, whenever it was. And you had 3 of the constitutional attorneys saying, yes, this rose to the level of impeachment very clearly. And then, of course, there was one who said it didn't. But even the one who said it didn't, he said it didn't because they didn't have enough evidence. He said it might rise to the level of impeachment soon, but why so fast? Why this rush? Why are you going so fast? Which, again, this is what I said from the beginning. I said this 2 months ago. I said they should slow it down. The longer it goes, the worse it is for Trump. But again, I'm disgusted with all of them, just to make my feelings known. Nancy Pelosi, they're all political animals. They're sort of interested in justice, but it's all political calculation. They should slow this thing down, make it thorough, make it correct. Frankly, the Republicans have a reason, at least on principle, to say, why is this so fast? Oh, it's so fast because you don't want to interfere in an election. Well, is it wrong or is it not wrong? Again, of course, the decision could be also said, well, you don't need 6 months to see that what he did wasn't correct. But here's the problem, which is why they should slow things down a little bit, and things are going to slow down, at least to some extent, is because they haven't heard from the principals yet. They haven't heard from, of course, Pompeo and Mulvaney especially, and Bolton, and these other people that had the direct conversations with the president. This is why I said they need to slow it down. If they're going to drag it out in the courts, let it drag out and keep impeachment in front of people forever and take months and months saying, see what he did, see what he did, see what he did. But again, Democrats are so weak, they got to apologize the whole time for doing it. Instead of coming out and saying, yeah, we're doing it, they're constantly apologizing and dissembling and weak. Anyway, so the need to be proper about this, right? And this is what we're seeing. But I just wanted to do this now to show how these transits have played out. You can go back and listen to the video that I did a month and a half or so ago when I was talking about these things right now. And I said what they should do is, after the middle, early middle of December, that's when things are going to get worse. So, and again, when I say worse, I mean, he's going to get impeached. That's bad. the president is going to get impeached. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to get removed from office, but his impeachment is coming after these transits. This stuff that is said happened before, these have been the salad days for this impeachment for him. And consequently, in some ways, for all of us. It's going to get worse. It's going to get ugly. It's going to go to the Senate, and they're going to bring Hunter Biden, and it's going to turn into an absolute circus. Get ready for it. And, you know, this has always been the danger of having a complete clown and an uninformed and immoral and corrupt person as president, is he's dragging the whole country through it. And now he's dragging half of the country, at least half of the political system, into it, because these Republicans have just completely lost their soul at this point. And they're not, you know, again, they're not even interested in getting the facts. Every witness that comes before them, they're just into character assassination for the most part, just trying to smear, not really trying to even get clear about most things. They're totally playing their angle and playing their bias. And again, whether or not people think what he did rose to the level of impeachment, it's very clear what he did. And again, they're even keeping it, the Democrats, very narrow. They're not even talking about the absolute debacle and fiasco of Rudy Giuliani. And this guy just, you know, there's so much. If this had been Watergate or that same era, this would have dragged out for years before they unpeeled the layers of the onion here. And there's so many layers of the onion to unpeel for, you know, in this investigation. So this, so he's been, all of this has been happening with the aspect of Jupiter, like the grace sort of protecting him from his consequences. Now that Jupiter is going to keep moving forward, it's going to, the grace is going to be gone. He doesn't have as much protection. And this could be very easily seen. We even saw it tonight where Mitch McConnell and the other ones in the Senate came out and said, it's unavoidable. There's going to be a trial in the Senate. Again, no matter what anybody says, and looking at this objectively, and many people are just not objective, they're thinking, oh, well, how could this have been him getting grace, or how could this be good? Look, from his point of view, this is about the worst thing that could happen to a president, is you're getting impeached and you might get removed from office. Regardless, you're going to forever have that stain. Nothing good about this. But even within that, he's had a lot of defenders. And if you don't want to see it that way, notice how in the midst of all the stuff we've seen publicly, basically you have half, which are the Democrats, trying to get the answers and saying, what happened? What's the evidence? And you have the other half, the Republicans, who are basically acting like Trump's attorneys, basically. They're just trying to impugn the character of the witnesses. They're just trying to smear the entire process. They're doing nothing. They're not interested at all in finding out what really happened. They've already decided it's a witch hunt and all of this stuff. So that's been the grace that we've seen. So you shouldn't overlook it. This is someone who is in deep, deep trouble with this. You can see it with the Saturn aspecting that retrograde Jupiter in his second house. But Jupiter has been going and giving him cover. Jupiter's been aspecting that Mars in his first house from Sagittarius. So basically he's like had, you know, half of the argument has been these people acting almost like his attorneys. And even still, it's not it. The verdict that came today was, and what we know is you're going to get impeached, which means Jupiter's going to keep going, Saturn's going to keep going, and that's what's going to happen. So again, it's very easy to be in our bias and say, well, that doesn't seem, how could that be good? Well, because look at the benefit. Okay, so a few other things have been happening, especially with him, and you can really even just see how hard this is. You know, someone already posted in the comments here about the whole thing with, where is it? Someone posted about the thing with with Justin Trudeau, him, laughing like a laughing stock. That video of people laughing at him, as K2 Wonder said, thank you, Justin Trudeau, for your jaw-dropping comments. This is just showing how these are hard times for this person. I mean, the stress and the pressure that he's under is enormous. Again, we can look at these transits aside from anything we might wish for him or want for our country or whatever. These are the heaviest transits someone would get, and the grace of Jupiter is going to be leaving. So you should see that already, as it's going to get tougher. And again, that doesn't mean that he's not going to still have these people defending him and whatnot, but you're going to see this with a lot more severity. And again, Jupiter is still going to be aspecting the first house. So there's still going to be a lot of Jupiter, grace flowing into his life. That's for sure. And so you're still going to see this benefit there. But as things move forward, especially, I think into early next year with how these things are moving, let me just go forward. So you can see now, even like this is December 19th, and this is actually moving up toward that eclipse. This is where we could definitely be having, and I wouldn't even be surprised if we get a vote, even if we get the formal House voting on articles of impeachment somewhere around here. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like the day before Christmas or something like that, somewhere around that time, right before the eclipse. That solar eclipse is on Christmas Day. So it might be a little earlier. It might be on this, near this full moon. Where are we at right now? What's the date? The 13th. So again, it could be any time. Once we get into the jaws of these eclipses, making exact predictions about this is hard. We can already see the trajectory of the energy here. But definitely by the time we get to this eclipse, especially once we get around here and the moon goes through this place, because it's also where he has this lunar return once it gets around there and the moon is debilitated over his debilitated natal moon. Again, this is Tuesday, December 24th, which is the day before that eclipse. Is it Tuesday? What's that day? What is that day? Yeah, it's Tuesday, December 24th. Again, the moon is going right over his natal moon at that time. And by the way, that's when it was 2 months before that the formal impeachment inquiry was opened. When Moon and Jupiter were here, that's when it was formally announced, at that exact moment. So this would make sense that around this time, the day before, or right around here, perhaps they would have a formal vote. So again, this is sad and serious stuff. And, all of the elected officials are really showing the wear. You saw Pelosi kind of lose it today with the stress of this whole thing. These old septuagenarians, Joe Biden today as well, as I'm recording this on December 5th, freaking out, about this whole thing. It's going to be a circus. The thing that's going on, again, this is U.S. politics. I'm going to pivot in a minute. But, one of the things that I see as well, even in this chart, and what has everything so kind of locked up, is all of this Saturn energy and all of these old people. Again, it's not that people that are in their 70s aren't, legitimate or valuable, but it's like our whole world is being run by these 75-year-old people. Half of them look like they're on meds and all kinds of not thinking straight. Nancy Pelosi looks like she's going to fall down half the time when she speaks. She slurs her words. Joe Biden can't remember half of what's going on. Trump, of course, is in mental decline. These are the people, Bernie Sanders, who's one of the presidential candidates. He's probably, easily the most with it of them. Even Elizabeth Warren is in her 70s. It's like our whole world in the U.S. is hinging on these like old people trying to not slur their words and remember what they're saying and remember where they're at. And I don't know what it is, man, but this is one of the things I'm really noticing. It's this Saturn K2. Again, this old kind of like this old guard that is just getting obliterated, but we're still like dependent on it. You really saw it today. You saw it over the weekend as well. Or, this whole it's not ageist talk, Anne. It's the truth, okay? And whatever, you can feel that way, but there's nothing ageist. And to say Nancy Pelosi is sharp, listen to Nancy Pelosi doing an interview 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Listen to Donald Trump doing an interview 10, 15 years ago, and tell me they haven't declined. That's all I'm saying. And I don't accept labels. It's not ageist. To say the truth is to say the truth. So, that's just not what I do. It's obviously the truth. And, there's really nothing else to say about that. We can see it with our own eyes. And I mean, even Trump, even if you listen to him in 2016, 2015, as bad as he sounded then, at least he was coherent. At least he wasn't saying tremendous every other word and saying oranges instead of origin or whatever. I mean, this is like Looney Tunes. And so again, it's all of these old people that are just not, who's, it seems like our whole like reality depends on them right now. And again, we see all of this Saturn K2 Jupiter energy in Sagittarius here. And again, Saturn K2, of course, really brings out that sort of that quality of age that's actually related to Saturn. And so again, what's going to happen as we go forward, even with Saturn is going to go into Capricorn in late January. And again, this is where I really think, I don't know, we'll wonder if this will be wrapped up by then. It's hard to say. I have a feeling that what could happen is on that eclipse time, when we get around this eclipse, I wouldn't be surprised if around this time, that last week, or as we move into this, we get a big surprise, a big shock. Like, for example, maybe a court case, maybe these idiotic judges that are holding the whole process up actually do a court decision and do their job and take this stuff out of the courts so that all these people can't stonewall endlessly, and people like Mulvaney and Don McGahn and Bolton and Pompeo and everyone who's been subpoenaed must come before the people and speak. You think that wouldn't shift things? That would shift things. By the way, the whole idea, I've never ascribed to it, this whole idea that you're never going to get a conviction in the Senate. You definitely could get a conviction. Absolutely. And if Trump wasn't stonewalling, it would be very different. If you had Bolton and Mulvaney and all these people under oath saying, yes, he told me to do it. Yes, it was a quid pro quo. Yes, we weren't going to release this aid unless the president got this guy to come on CNN or whatever it was. And you heard it right straight from, and you knew exactly. And that's just what we know. God knows the stuff we don't know. We're finding out more and more stuff we don't know, like this connection with Giuliani and this Parnas, these international Russian oligarch, sort of shady criminals. These guys knew Trump really well. Who knows what else was going on? Again, there could be major disclosures with his financial records. I mean, there is a million things that could change, especially if the courts got off their butt and started doing their jobs. They could expedite these things through the courts in 2 seconds, and they don't. The Supreme Court could say, look, expedite this stuff. It's a matter of national interest, and they don't. So something like this could happen, especially with the courts. And especially because Trump isn't getting that aspect anymore from Jupiter onto his ascendant and Mars. So again, there's grace operating that we're not even aware of that you got to notice. There's a lot of things that could have gone a lot worse so far. Not having 7 Republicans attacking every person, not having these courts saying, "Oh, we'll think about it. We'll have a hearing on it in a month and a half." These decisions, once Trump started stonewalling, they could have expedited these things and done them in a few days. They could wrap all that stuff up, and Trump will lose every one of them in court because none of them are constitutional. You can't grant yourself unconditional immunity or whatever the heck that thing is he's trying to do. It's not legal, but you can petition the courts forever. You can just keep appealing forever. So he'll keep losing on appeal, but you can still just do it as a stall tactic. So again, this is what bugs me about the Democrats. They just take it. They just say, whatever. That's not what you do. You fight for it and you let it be known. And you go before the cameras every day and scream about how these courts and these district courts and these people need to clear their docket for the good of the country. And you come out every day and say that. That's what the Republicans would be doing. They'd be screaming about it every day. Democrats, you don't even hear about the issue. So there could be something that turns and that flips the whole thing by the end of this year. So I want to move on from that part of it. Again, there's also a whole bunch of, other things that have been happening. I was also talking about the competing worldviews and the whole deep state, what they're going to really find out is the deep state. What about Hillary? What about Obama investigating Trump? What about the dossier? What about the deep state? How the whole Russia hoax was a hoax started by the hoax and this and that. And yeah, they went really far with that. Bill Barr, who is a disgrace, also they've tried to make this legal. Barr appointed, forgot the guy's name now. Somebody will remember it. And even Barr's handpicked guy, Barr went all around the world trying to get these leaders to rat on our intelligence agencies, and none of them would bite. No one is biting on this, even in the conspiratorial Trump, Bill Barr universe. No one is getting behind this idea that there was a conspiracy, a deep state conspiracy, and all of that stuff. They're even trying to make it official, and it's still not working. I said before, let's wait and see what happens. I said before, those of you who are saying, well, the truth will come out, and that truth is going to be that it was a big deep state conspiracy and all this stuff, all this QAnon conspiracy stuff, we're going to see it. It's going to come out, like I said. And it's coming out. Just today, it didn't occupy a big space, I don't think, in the mainstream news, but they did report that the person that Attorney General Barr appointed to try to create some narrative around the deep state was behind Russia, and it was all hoax, and it was all Obama and Comey trying to do all this stuff rather than what actually happened, which was the Carter page and all the whole thing. If you bother to, learn about how the Russia investigation started in the during the election cycle, they investigated it. They've been investigating it for months, and Trump's own Attorney General, Justice Department cannot find any proof of any of that stuff. It's obvious it's not what it was. Again, only these strange. If you understand how these things work, you would realize how ridiculous it is to think that all of these people are going to put their careers on the line just to perpetrate some hoax against someone who, if they get caught, their entire career is ruined. They could go to jail. And for what? Again, why? Just because of Trump? And then they do it and Trump wins anyway? Look, if the deep state, quote, wanted to sink him, they could sink him like nothing. Do you think they couldn't do it? They certainly seem to be against Hillary Clinton more than Trump, for sure, especially Comey. So again, in what universe that makes sense isn't the one most of us occupy. Unfortunately, it's the one the president occupies, and he's also found an attorney general to also cooperate with this nonsense. And by the way, there's a really, really scary kind of messiah complex that some of these officials have. Pompeo and Bill Barr both seem to think that Donald Trump is some anointed figure. This is some of the scariest stuff I see right now. Is if Trump loses the next election, I mean, you have these people that almost seem like they would destroy the country to try to prop up this messiah figure or something. Some of these people are just, and these aren't weird conspiracy theory people. These are people in government positions now with a lot of power. This is some of the stuff that's really, to me, even, some of the weirdest, some of the weirdest stuff out there. When you look at what Barr, especially Pompeo, Pompeo is like an Armageddon, end of the world, what do they call it? Rapture, guy. He thinks all that's coming. And anyway, well, I don't want to get too far into all of that, but, underneath it all, all these conspiracies, like I said, it's going to come out. So those of you who have been saying forever, and I've heard it forever, oh, you wait and see, it's just the deep state. They're going to blow up the deep state. He's going to reveal the deep state. He's here to protect us from the deep state. He's got an attorney general right now investigating the deep state. And if it was there and there was any way that it would come out, it would be out now. Because our attorney general has been going around, in the view of most people, again, disgracing the U.S. and our intelligence services, going around to like the government of Italy and other people and sending these other attorneys on these fact-finding missions to try to find some kind of way to hook into some conspiracy theory. And they're coming back and saying there's nothing here. Now, it's not finished yet. They still have a few more things to do. And they're probably going to come out with some kind of report, the IG report is what it's called, that said that there was some misconduct in certain parts of certain parts of the early part of the investigation, which is not good. But they've already fired people. They've already self-policed a lot. So again, I'm talking about this because, as I said, this this is all about the Saturn K2 Jupiter. I said K2 Jupiter. We're going to really drill into these ideas now and drill into these theories and this all of these conspiracies and really getting down to the truth. Like we're getting more and more narrow, more and more pure information. So it looks like people are having a food fight in the comments, so I'm just not going to pay any attention to it. If there's someone, just, if there's someone that's getting really offended because I'm talking about these things, the reality kind of stuff, it's best to just not indulge it. There's nothing you're going to say. And so let's see here. So again, one of the worst things that I think has been revealed is just these elected officials sort of acting like cult members or something, or not even just elected officials, but other people that no matter what, they just refuse to see what's going on. And so again, the truth is going to be coming out and it's going to be bearing down harder. Again, even these harsh realities of, seeing all these leaders laughing at them like that. I mean, this is a harsh truth. This is a harsh reality. Other things are getting harsher, especially with North Korea and other kind of international politics. All these protests now in Iran. And very unsettling what's happening there to people that I know in Iran. I hope you're well. And just the sort of changing order, it's all getting kind of destroyed. And I think the main thing that we all can take from it, or that I at least take from it, is that the system, I've always said it, the system itself is what's really corrupt. And it corrupts everyone. They're all corrupt. Trump is a manifestation of that, and he's obviously trying to use all the corruption for his personal gain, not trying to clean anything up. And it's obvious to anyone who is not indoctrinated into the, oh, no, what he meant was this, what he meant was that. Unless you're in that sort of what appears to be a kind of brainwash, like you just don't want to hear anything true. To the rest of us, it's like, yeah, this is really awful. But the other choices that we have aren't that good either. So I'll look at a couple comments here if they seem to be worth reading. Just seems like a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of conversation and arguing. So Patricia says, all politicians are corrupt. What about Epstein? I want the people involved trafficking to be prosecuted. I wish they would all quit wasting my tax dollars. Yeah. So, oh, here's one. Sam, you're a butt-hurt hippie. Well, I'm not even sure what that means. But, hey, that's cool. You can call me that if you want. So, I'm not sure what the context is of most of this stuff. But anyway, so someone is asking me, and I'll answer it here. Before the end of the video, would you mind letting us know how many spots you have left for consultation? Well, if you wanted to get one, you could get one. You can go ahead and do it if you want. One second. And I do have slots. I am doing some readings now. Okay, so moving on just from U.S. domestic politics, which is really popping right now. I mainly wanted to show also because of these transits, which have been showing very clearly. And again, whether we see it or not, Trump has been getting a lot of benefit by having all of those attack dogs in those hearings and whatnot. That I think we're going to see a lot of that sort of benefit. Also, these court cases. And I said this even a month ago. I said there would be a lot of grace maybe in some court decisions and other things. So we might see some things get a lot more serious, the hammer come down a lot harder here as far as he's concerned. Now, again, other things that have been happening, especially in the in other world politics, we definitely see the same kind of uprisings that I was talking about. That's not just happening here in the U.S., but in Iran, especially, there's been a lot of the citizens rising up. Even in Russia, they've had a lot of protests, and there's been more unrest, and it's a time of enormous unrest now with all of this K2 Jupiter, now that the sun is also there, and we're moving toward this eclipse. So aside from that, there's definitely a lot of other kinds of hypocrisy and wrong thinking and clarification. I've seen a lot of it I'll just speak personally, in like the astrology world, and especially a lot of what I just got back from a conference, and there was, so much of the good teachings and the Dharma and the authentic wisdom being reaffirmed, being restored, being shown. And I'm really hopeful that a lot of that's going to translate into where we're moving in the next several months and much of this year. I will tell you, and I'm going to be doing it in the next in an upcoming video, especially in the 2020 video that I'm releasing, where I'm talking about the election and the U.S. election, and it's pretty I don't know if ominous, but it's you can definitely see the power and the potential in the 2020 election, especially with Trump's chart, and how powerful the transits are at that time. And there's a lot of questions. Putin's fate. You need to look at. I need to have charts up in front of me. I don't have his chart. So someone says. So Jill says. So what's mapped in the sky globally and personally? I wonder how much free will we have. All of it is free will. Free will is just your presence and your awareness and your capacity to operate within whatever circumstances you have. So everything is predeterminism based on what you've done before, and now your moment to have a moment of presence to operate within that skillfully. So you don't want to look at it as a false choice, as how much is fate, how much is free will. They're part of the same thing. And free will is literally just your response. But again, your response is not outside of your circumstances. Like right now, I'm experiencing the karma, or you might say, the fate or the karma of everything that's led to it, which means I'm sitting here right now doing this. That's my karma has led to that. Now, me sitting here, I can be filling this moment up with anything. Just because these are my circumstances, which is a result of everything I've ever done in all my lifetimes, that doesn't mean I can do anything in this moment. For example, right now I'm sitting here. I'm not sitting in India. I'm not sitting on a mountaintop. I'm not in the water. I'm here. So this moment, I can fill it with whatever I want to fill it with. And in fact, I must. That's why I'm here. So every moment arrives as some pure moment of free will, as you're saying it, based totally on your karma. So they're both at the same time. So you want to take the false choice out of it. So you want to take the false choice out of everything, just like we're talking about the politics and the situation. And yes, I follow it, and then I speak about it, and then I don't. So when I talk about it, I definitely watch it and follow it. It's very interesting to me, but it doesn't define me. It doesn't define. I can speak about any of them. I don't have a personal relationship or friendship or love of any of them. They're all politicians that do jobs, and I look at the society and just look at that stuff, right? Then I go do the rest of my life. But just as I'm just saying this because the circumstances that we have to do our best within it, because I live in a culture, I live in a country, I live in a world, but I'm not defined by it. And the more we're defined by these things, the worse it is. And this is the problem, I think, with anyone who is, we're now so defined by these politicians and by this politics. Again, people project onto me that I feel defined by it. I don't feel defined by the people. I want the people to do a good job. I want Donald Trump to do a good job. I have no love or hate for him or any of them. I want them to do a good job because I want the world to, I want us to do well. I want the world to keep going, and I don't want people to be hurt or cruel or abused. And if he did a fantastic job, I would be totally happy. And if he was better than the next guy in the next election, I would vote for him. And that is absolutely true, whether people believe it or not. But again, I'm not defining myself by what any of these people are doing. It's when people, you see people become brainwashed or become in this sort of cult of personality. They're the ones that are doing that because they're not thinking critically anymore. And so it doesn't matter what the person does anymore. They just like him or they worship him or they're defining themselves through those circumstances. So this is why I say the problem is the system. I'm just as irritated at Democrats as I am at Republicans or whatever. they're all the same. It's all just a system. And so I'm saying this now because within whatever is happening in your life, within whatever is happening to our existence in the outer world and these people, you can't get this hatred or this kind of thing. You know, you saw Nancy Pelosi today. I saw on the news that she responded when someone said, "Do you hate Trump?" And she responded with a lot of anger about it, which kind of, and said, "I don't hate anybody," which almost said like, yeah, you do. You obviously are bringing some hatred into this, or you wouldn't respond that aggressively. So again, this is our karma to live in this time. Your karma is to be alive at this time and to experience it the way you experience it, and to get angry at people that attack your dear leader or support them and think, oh yeah, I like them, or whatever it is. Our karma is to go through this stuff, right? Our karma is to live it and understand that we can only be that the self is not defined by anything on this plane. The self is not defined by anything. The true self isn't defined by any of this stuff. It's beyond that. And so it's very easy to get all attached to the victories and the losses of the world. And it's not that it doesn't affect any of us. You know, it's hurtful when these bad policies come out. Yes, it makes me angry because I see, you know, kids in cages or this or that. And yes, I know Obama started it or whatever. Again, people just can't hear anything. I don't care. I don't care that Obama started it. You still have, let's say, for example, this guy in this administration perpetuating things that I just don't agree with. Again, so we're always so ready to become factionalized now instead of staying with the issues that are important to us, whatever they might be. But besides all that, staying objective and seeing it all as a play. And the world has always been this way. You know, I also just spent time with my guru, Amma, and you know, she has a Q&A. She has a question and answer session. Excuse me. And one of the people asked, you know, it's always the same question. You always hear this, Amma, we come and we spend time with you and it's so great, but then you leave and then the world is so horrible and it seems to get worse and worse all the time. And what do we do? How do we this? How do we that? It's always the same question. Some version of the same question. And it's always getting worse and it's always harder. And, you know, again, Amma is always like, I mean, she's compassionate, but she's always like, the world has always been this way. The world will never be different. And you're making the world that way. It's your world that you project, that you see. You see it that way. And so this is why we have to do our spiritual practices and we have to do our sadhana and all of that as well. And that's also the big part of what all of these transits are right now. All these planets in Sagittarius, especially right now, as you see right here. So these planets in Sagittarius, very much about bringing higher wisdom, pure teachings, really connecting with that higher wisdom, because that higher wisdom will actually have a lot of benefit now. This is how these transits really work. When I'm talking about the higher wisdom and the truth coming out in all these political situations. Again, the last time I did a real political update was a month and a half ago or something. I don't do them that often, mainly because it doesn't occupy that much of my life or my mind. It does, but not that much. But the point, you know, I might, you know, make references to it often, you know, here and there. But, you know, but the thing is, the real benefit of even acknowledging that is it's a time to really see the truth and to connect with the truth. As I've been saying, this Jupiter through Sagittarius is showing us the truth is going to finally come out, and we're going to see it. And we see it now. We have been seeing it now like we haven't seen before. People coming out, like even, let's say, in those hearings, coming out and saying, absolutely this happened. Absolutely it's wrong. Absolutely he was trying to benefit himself for the election and all this. Absolutely yes. And that's something we haven't seen. It's all speculative. Well, it's not now. And if people want to just choose to not see that, they can do that. But at least we're seeing it. The same is true in your life. That all those truths are there. All those great spiritual teachings, spiritual traditions, things to study, all of that high truth is there. So now is a great time to really connect your mind with all of that high spiritual wisdom as well. And, you know, that high spiritual wisdom is something that will, that your mind is really looking for now. So this is why these moments and these opportunities open, because, and especially relative to wherever your ascendant is, there's very powerful what are called yogas, Raja yogas by transit, especially, and you know, powerful associations that can really catapult your learning and your understanding and your wisdom into the next level. But we're seeing these shakeups globally. We're seeing this reorientation. Again, we see it in Britain, or I'm sorry, in the United Kingdom. We see it in Israel, where Netanyahu, his whole thing is in decline. In Britain, you know, back and forth with Boris Johnson, and then maybe another no confidence vote. In South America, many countries are, you know, experiencing, changes in leadership, with a lot of citizens trying to overturn the old guard. And we're also seeing a lot of this now, even in, especially, you know, socially, with things like the social media companies, especially with, for example, Twitter has decided to ban political ads, for example. YouTube is, I'm sorry, not YouTube, but Facebook is still running political ads. So we're about to get into this whole kind of, again, sort of social litmus test, where we have to ask ourselves if we think it's better to not have any sort of gatekeepers, or where do the gatekeepers in communication, you know, lie, and how willing are we to really look into things deeply? You know, this is one of the biggest issues that I see, especially socially. Now, even with trying to speak the truth, like with some of the things that I see, where people they don't want to digest the truth because it takes a little more effort. It's a little harder. It takes a little more research and headspace. It's very easy to just believe. Sometimes it's much easier to just believe the thing that's simple, that's more like an opinion, that's easier to digest, and that simplifies something that's very complex. A couple simplified sound bites, and that's enough. That's all great. Now I have an answer. I don't have to research. I got some answer, but it's not true. And so there's so much of this happening now, where people are willing to be thorough, to look into things that require the time and effort to look into them. And I'm not even really speaking that much even about social political things. I'm talking more about things that have to do with your soul's growth and your soul's evolution, because this is really where that stuff comes out, when we just take the easiest, most digestible answer because it's expedient. Christopher Williams says, what happens if you're actually wrong? I don't know if you mean me completely, But if you're wrong, you're wrong. I've been wrong many times about many things. If someone's wrong, they're wrong. We're all wrong. What do you mean, what if? You're wrong, Christopher, about almost everything. So am I. We're all wrong. Again, I'm just being facetious here because I get what you're saying. But again, there are first of all, we shouldn't declare. See, the problem isn't, and it's a good question. We don't have to. I don't ever say I'm right about anything that I can't see or that I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know. The problem is people say they're right or they think things are correct that they don't know, that they don't understand. So right and wrong is a conclusion. And that's fine, Christopher. That's fine, what you're saying here. Right and wrong is a conclusion based on the assumption that someone has actually researched something well enough to be able to decide what's right or wrong. Until that time, you shouldn't think you're right or wrong about anything. Don't say you're right if you don't know it. Don't say someone else is wrong unless you know it. This is exactly the problem. We use terms like right or wrong before we know what the hell we're talking about. We should be open. Again, I don't ever say that I know something is right unless I know it's right. Again, it's actually just integrity. It's actually just knowing what you're saying because you've looked into it and you know. And again, the problem is people say that something is right or wrong before they know what they're talking about. That's exactly the issue. And again, it might be confusing because we're so used to people declaring things are right or wrong before before they know anything about it. You know, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of it. I see people, again, I run websites. This is just an example of some of it's not really political, but just ideas about conspiracy theories. This is a big thing that's happened. You know, people who I know have absolutely no idea, for example, how the NSA or the FBI or the intelligence services would ever come to a conclusion, let's say that it was Russian meddling. They have no idea how these agencies gather forensic data and how they can know for sure that something like this happened. And they just go, I don't believe it. It's all this, it's all that, who knows? And people have these opinions of what they say is right or wrong, and they have absolutely no idea how any of it works. For example, it is so easy for them to know. Again, because I've researched this. For example, the hack on Podesta, the way they got Podesta's email, access to Podesta's email in the campaign in 2016. It is absolutely child's play to be able to figure out where that came from. It was a spear phishing ploy, and you can track that right to the place of origin. It was in Russian language, and and again, if someone bothers to research it, you can know exactly how they found this stuff out. They watched the hack. They let them hack, and they actually watched the hackers to see what the hackers did, and watched where you can use a simple trace route to find where it comes from. It's you can see if they're using a VPN. You can trace and track all of this. It's simply not that hard. So to say that they don't really know, or who knows, or blah, 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 again, that doesn't stop half the world of saying, well, I think it's wrong, and just having some opinion that they have absolutely zero, that they're not even remotely qualified to make. That's an example of what I mean. Now we just generate opinions like they're breathing. Oh, it's right or wrong, right or wrong. I believe it, don't believe it. Why are you believing anything? Don't believe anything. Keep an open mind, investigate, and don't say you're right about something you're not right. If you don't know, say you don't know. That it's easy. And if you are wrong, then you're wrong. Why would anyone be married to this idea that they have to be right? Right about what? And again, it's a good question. And the reason I'm talking about it is because it's such a problem in this world now. We live in a post-factual world. And, you know, one of the things our president does that his followers don't seem to mind is something that he doesn't like. He calls it fake news. And it's the most obvious thing in the world. And anyone, in fact, everyone, except those who are just indoctrinated to like everything he does, sees it very clearly and also recognize it's lying, it's deceptive, and it's dangerous. And the most dangerous part is all the people that accept it and that accept the alternate reality that's just given to them by this person. Again, that's even just objective. You can see it with your eyes. It's not even an opinion. Again, I'm not wrong about that because you see it all the time, right in front of you. Now, I might be wrong about the interpretation of it or whatever, but you're not wrong about what your very eyes are showing you all the time. That's a clear, it's a fact. And we live in a world now, this kind of post-factual world. You know, I just saw that the chess player, what's his name, who grew up in that chess player, Russian chess player, just wrote an article. He was from post-Soviet Russia, or from the post. You know, he grew up in Russia and then he lived in the Soviet Union, and he said it's more scary what he's seeing now even than in Russia, because in Russia or in the Soviet era, at least all the citizens knew it was just propaganda. And when the government would say things like the equivalent of what we would now say fake news, or they would just put something out that was demonstrably false, the people knew it was demonstrably false. They knew it was just propaganda. They knew that's just the way the government worked. But now there's a portion of people that don't. They're just like, no, what I see happening, I don't care about. I don't care about because the dear leader and Fox News or these people told me it's true. So I'm not going to think critically anymore. So it's scary. It's scary to see that. So, and I know there's, you know, a small amount of people whose heads are exploding that I'm saying this now. So that's fine. Your head can explode. I'm sorry that it is, but, you know, that's just the way it goes. So anyway, the reason I wanted to have the conversation is just because we have the, we have this, oops, go back here. So just checking in again with these transits especially, and seeing how, especially in Trump's chart right now, I mean, it's momentous that we have impeachment, articles of impeachment against the president. And you can see the transits to his chart showing how and why. I said it a month and a half ago. It's remarkable how precise it winds up being, though, with Saturn. Well, now we're back here. Exact date, we're now December 5th. So Saturn 24, right exactly on his natal Jupiter, this aspect. And Jupiter is now pretty much right on his ascendant, but it's starting to pass. So again, just notice how this plays out. Notice how you might start seeing some people now, especially as it gets closer to something that might happen in the Senate. You might start seeing some people leave, seeing some defenders, because they're now starting to get the reality as well, is that there's going to be a trial in the Senate. It's really going to happen. And again, I'm not making a prediction about whether I think whether or not he'll be removed. I'm thinking probably not. Again, that's not really necessarily an astrological prediction here, but looking at the transits, especially perhaps that Jupiter continuing through his 5th house, aspecting his 1st, might be enough to keep him. And Saturn is now passing the aspect. So some of the hardest stuff could be coming now and in the next few months. But watch and see what happens in the next couple of weeks, especially. Watch and see what happens in the next couple of weeks. And some shocking sudden disclosures, especially around the holidays, around Christmas and into early next year. I wouldn't be surprised if, especially because this Jupiter is leaving, there might be some court cases that go against him, and maybe, you know, reveal some things that will now bring his, you know, bring those people before the cameras, that could make it harder and harder for those in the Senate to keep supporting what it seems that he has clearly done, by all intents and purposes, and that it's not that it was an abuse of power, and also clear obstruction of justice. There's no question that there's obstruction of justice here. No, we've never seen anyone obstruct Congress this way. It's their right to subpoena documents and to conduct oversight. He does not have the constitutional right to block all of it. That's not an opinion. Again, that's a fact. We have a document that shows it. Nixon, not Nixon or Clinton or anyone has ever obstructed the process like this. And common sense should tell you the last thing. If you think any of these people would exonerate him, don't you think they'd be testifying? Of course they're not testifying, because they know that as soon as they go before the cameras, he's sunk even deeper. Common sense should tell you that. So again, those who really are freaking out because I dare say what seems to be obvious to most of us, just think about it like that. If you were really innocent and you had like 3 or 4 people who could just exonerate you like that, you go, yeah, Mick, go tell them what happened, Mick. Go tell them what happened, Mike Pompeo. Go tell them what happened, Rick Perry. Go tell them what really happened. No. He's saying, no. John Bolton, go testify. Everybody testify. Of course he would. Wouldn't you, if all these people could exonerate you? Come on. Again, we're not stupid. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Oh, here we go. Come on, Chris. I don't want to argue about it, but the Biden Schiff whistleblower. Come on, man. Anyway, we'll see what happens, Christopher, okay? You could see that. To say there's no proof, what is proof? Anyway, look, people are free to have their opinions about things as well. I'm not sure what you think the Biden's Schiff and whistleblower are going to say. I honestly don't. What are they going to say that's going to, again, this is just, I'll just say this. First of all, they have nothing to do with anything Trump did. If anything were to happen to them, they would be separate. Let's say Schiff comes up and says what? What is it? Schiff is supposedly because the whistleblower talked to his staff. Okay, let's say that happened. What is that going to do? That has nothing to do with what Trump did, dude. It's a separate, if there were to be any charge, it wouldn't have anything to do with what Trump did. Biden, what does Biden in Ukraine have to do with Trump obstructing justice and Trump abusing his power? It's not an excuse. We have laws in this country. If what Joe Biden's son did was illegal, we have a Justice Department that could go after him. There's a mechanism. We have laws in the US. You can't use another government to persecute or to go after your political adversaries. Again, if it was just for corruption, fine, bring them forward. You know what I'm saying? You're getting stuck in something that has no bearing on the process. By the way, I hope they do come. I hope, and I think it's going to happen. I think the Republicans are going to turn it into a circus. Christopher, you're just saying that's what the investigation is about. No, it's not. Again, you're just not thinking. You're just listening to this propaganda or something. Bringing Joe Biden or his son is not going to change impeachment. It's just going to create a lot of, what do you think that's going to stop? That has nothing to do with, it has nothing to do with with what he did. Again, seeing that someone else broke the law. Let's say that what Hunter Biden did, let's say that it was illegal, which it wasn't, but let's say it was. Seeing someone do something illegal, so I'm going to do something illegal in response, doesn't change the illegal act I just did. Anyway, I can't get into it. You know, you just have to, they don't track, okay? And by the way, what Hunter Biden, the Bidens, They're all corrupt morons. What he did was wrong morally, but it wasn't wrong legally. If it was wrong legally according to Ukrainian law, they should take legal action against him. But we can't get a foreign government to investigate our citizens for things and holding up legally approved financial aid as a result. Again, what happened, the legal procedure is the aid was approved by Congress. That's done. It was supposed to go, and Trump and the OMB said, no, do not release the funds. Don't release the funds until the president of Ukraine goes on TV and says, we're investigating the Bidens for all this stuff. And you hear him, and you see every person involved in the process says exactly that thing, that all of that aid that was legally approved was being held up so that Trump could extract this favor from this leader, and the leader was about to do it. They were about to go on CNN. But then someone found out, in the Congress found out and said, this is illegal. You need to... They found out that there was a whistleblower complaint, and then Trump released the money immediately once he was caught. This has been corroborated now 15 times, no matter where you look. That is not going to change regardless of what Hunter Biden did. That's a separate issue. If Hunter Biden or Schiff or whatever are in trouble, it has no bearing on what Trump did. None. Maybe they will be in trouble. You know, I want to see the whole circus. I'm with you, man. Bring it all out. Bring it all out. Oh, come on, man. Oh, God. Christopher, please. Come on, man. Come on, man. No proof he withheld aid. Come on, man. All right. So anyway, I explained the simple facts that like 20 people have corroborated by now under oath. So again, Christopher, if what you're saying is true, then how come all the people that could exonerate Trump, all of them, will not come and raise their hand and tell that story? And they won't release all the documents that says very clearly what you just said. Why? Because you will see correspondence after correspondence. We've already seen a couple text messages, but you will see one message after the next that completely disagrees with what you said. You will see one message and one testimony after the next that says, don't release the aid until we get this. This has already been shown now 100 times. Why won't Trump release the documents that clears his name? Why? Because he wants to get impeached? Why won't he let Mulvaney testify? Mulvaney's the one who held it up. Why won't he let Rick Perry? Why won't he let John Bolton? Why won't he let these people come and clear his name? Clear his good name? Come on, man. Think. Think. Christopher, ask yourself the simple question I just asked you. Why won't he let Mulvaney, Pompeo, Rick Perry, John Bolton, why won't he let them testify? They had direct access to him. Why? If they could clear him, you know he would let them clear him. He didn't release a transcript. He released a paraphrase of the transcript, and even that was damning. There's nothing here. Mulvaney, as I said, Mulvaney literally said quid pro quo. So did Sondland. So did everybody. It's the simplest thing in the world, Christopher. Come on, man. Come on. Come back to earth. I'm sorry to be rude, but come on. It's simple. It's right in front of you. It's called extortion in a less flattering way. You have someone over a barrel. He's vulnerable because think of how insidious this is. The Russians have invaded the Ukraine. They have invaded Ukraine, and we're giving aid to Ukraine to stop the Russian aggression. The aid has been approved, and it's been cleared. It's been cleared of any sort of possibility of corruption. There's an entire bureau that makes sure that the money is not going for corrupt purposes. There's an entire protocol in the government responsible for doing that, and that aid had already cleared and had supposed to have been released when Trump and Mulvaney came in and said, no, stop the aid. And then they even had to keep generating excuses to stop the aid every few days. And when he was found, and while that was happening, they fired an ambassador. They smeared her because she wouldn't play in that dumb scheme. John Bolton resigned because he didn't want to be part of the drug deal they were cooking up. Come on, man. Please, please, please. Again, whatever. I'm saying this just for everybody, but come on, man. You just don't want to hear. Sondland wasn't on the call. Okay. I tried. So anyway, it's very clear what happened. And that's okay. Look, it's all right that people, I don't think he's a troll. I think he's just, I think he's asking questions and I'm just answering them. I'm saying it because there are a lot of people that think this. They're just regurgitating things like we're not going to agree. We're not going to agree on what? On what every career agent who has nothing to gain by coming forward. None of those people that testified before the Senate had anything to gain by coming forward. All they did is subject themselves to harassment, publicity they didn't want, but they saw what was happening and they knew it was wrong. That's the only reason those people came forward, and they were attacked for it. They're not heroes. They weren't trying to be heroes. They're not politicians. They're people that work in the services. Again, does it bother you that Trump went after this lady, this ambassador, and all of the stuff that happened? Again, please think about this. I don't know. What is it that what are you defending here, Christopher? This guy's trying to meddle in our elections. Is it that you like him and you want him to meddle again so he wins? What are you defending here? And why? Why are you defending it? Why can't you just see what's obvious? I mean, literally, it's obvious. It's been corroborated by dozens of people. And what's glaringly absent is the people that he's preventing. If he's innocent, why is he preventing all the documents? Every document that could clear him, if what you're saying is true, all of those documents exist, Christopher. But do you know what those documents say? Those documents incriminate him so that this idea that you still have would be utterly decimated. Why don't you think Pompeo is testifying? Why isn't Mulvaney testifying? And it's not even close. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why he doesn't want them to testify. Because it's probably just the tip of the iceberg, as someone here wrote. Who knows how corrupt this is? Who knows what layers of the onion start getting revealed once you start peeling back even this simplest thing? What about all these other calls that are on the secret server? What other stuff has he been saying to other world leaders? God knows what he's been saying. Again, Christopher, what are you defending, man? What and why? You sound like you're someone interested in truth. There's nothing truthful about what you're saying. Your head's in the sand, man. I'm sorry, but it is. Go back and watch the testimony of people and the simple chronology of what happened. And again, ask yourself, why won't he let all these other people testify that would exonerate him in a minute if it weren't true? So we'll leave it at that. And I think I think he's a good guy. He's not a troll. I don't think he's a troll at all. He's got his ideas. But the reason I'm saying this is because literally ask yourself, why are you defending this, man? I mean, literally, why are you defending this man? What has he done for you? What has he done for any of us? Why cover up this smarmy deal? It was a smarmy, somebody trying to extort a favor from a world leader he's got over a barrel because he's being attacked by Russia. Does it bother you? What if he's compromised by Russia? It certainly seems like it. Does that bother you? What are you defending? Again, I just ask this to people. What are people defending in this man, in Trump? Like, what is it that you just can't say, okay, yeah, obviously? What is the point of regurgitating these stories that do nothing but allow probably the dumbest person we've ever seen in public life to just insult everybody and embarrass us and make a mockery of everything, and the whole world laughing at us because of this buffoon who's a president? Why are people going to such lengths to defend this stuff? I just don't get it. I really don't. So anyway, yeah, bring on the circus. I don't know. But yeah, okay. So, I know when I have these things that people are going to say what they say. And Christopher's respectful, and that's fine. I don't need everybody to agree with me. And I don't mind people asking or express themselves. I actually wound up banning a couple people because they were just trolling and they're just calling people names. And they're just calling me names or saying people are idiots and all that. And so if I see it, I'll kick people out because I don't want that. But Christopher's just speaking his mind, and I don't mind anybody speaking their mind. So I appreciate your feedback, Christopher, as well as other people. So this is just what I think is obvious, and this kind of, we've gotten used to a post-factual world where we just kind of can make up our own reality, and for some reason, people have attached a certain amount of it to all this stuff. So anyway, I hope this was helpful to see the transits and to watch since the last time I talked about this and to see maybe where things are going. And we'll just leave it at that. And you all take care.